Welcome into the Wiltfong Whiparound with Steve Wiltfong. Today is Thursday, November 21st, and I'm your host, Josh Newberg. We got the best insider in the country, Steve Wiltfong. He's on this show, and you guys, we got a lot to talk about. You guys know the big news today. Julian Lewis has committed to Colorado. We're going to cover it all in this show, but first, you guys do me a favor. Smash that subscribe button. We're going to talk about it all. It's a big show today. Happy to have you. Let's bring on Steve Wiltfong. And Steve, we're going to start with the biggest news of the day. Julian Lewis is off the board to Colorado. Deion Sanders lands his number one target at the position. It's come full circle. We've been waiting for this day for a long time. He's been trending in Colorado's direction. Why do you think he got it done today?
Well, I think from opportunity to play, be a day one starter, to the NIL opportunities of being the starting quarterback at Colorado for Deion Sanders, to the success that the Buffaloes are having on the field this fall, all the stars align for Colorado to land their top target at the position. Julian Lewis, a longtime commit to USC, kept several schools warm, from Alabama to Auburn to Indiana to Georgia. Colorado gets him in the end. Deion Sanders and his staff have had one huge recruiting win every single cycle, going back to his time at Jackson State when he flipped Travis Hunter. Now he's got to flip this roster with Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter and those guys moving on after the season. Julian Lewis is a hell of a place to start.
Yeah, and he could very well be an impact day one starter for the Buffs. Now, this is only probably, there's 2 weeks till signing day, and this, getting the crown jewel of your class in place, it could have an impact on the stretch run for the Buffs. Steve, who are some of the top targets that you're tracking now that Colorado has Julian Lewis in place?
Well, Colorado has a small class, but pound for pound, it's mighty. A lot of guys that can come in and be instant impact players. The next guy on the list for me is four-star offensive lineman Carde Smith, an on 300 recruit, also formerly committed to USC, reopened his recruitment last night. My on-3 RPM is on Colorado. Feel really good about that pick. The Buffaloes would love to bookend him with true freshman left tackle Jordan Seaton. Some other guys at Colorado swinging on. You have electric receiver Quentin Gibson out of the Lone Star State. Colorado is near the top of his list with programs like SMU and Mississippi State. IMG Academy is a program that's been really good to Colorado. That's where Jordan Seaton played his high school football. They're in on four big-time targets down the stretch. Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng's a four-star linebacker that also likes Michigan, Notre Dame, and USC. I like the way it's starting to shape up for Colorado at this point in his process. He's coming off a midweek visit to Boulder after taking in a game earlier in the fall. So he's seen a game. Now he's seen the day in the life of a Colorado football player. Like Julian Lewis, the opportunity to come in and impact the second level of that Colorado defense in year one, I think is very exciting and attractive to him. London Merritt is an edge rusher committed to Ohio State. He has also taken 2 visits to Colorado this fall. That seems to be trending in a positive direction for the Buffaloes. They're also recruiting Alexander McPherson, who has led IMG in sacks the last 2 seasons. He's committed to Oklahoma State, but he has taken visits to NC State and Colorado over the last 2 weekends. Had a fantastic time at Colorado. And then another big fish. Can Deion Sanders have 2 massive recruiting wins at the end of the cycle? 5-star offensive lineman Michael Carroll. He's a longtime commit to Alabama. That's going to be the toughest flip of them all. He's expected back in Tuscaloosa for the Iron Bowl in a couple weeks, but he visited Colorado over the weekend and had a nice time.
Yeah, and Coach Sanders sending out a strong message that he's in this for the long haul. You know, Steve, there's a lot of buzz. There's a lot of people talking, maybe mainly the haters, saying that, hey, Deion's leaving with Travis and Shedeur, but landing a guy and putting in the time that Coach Prime and his staff did to land a Julian Lewis type prospect, does that send a message that Coach Prime's in this for the long haul?
Well, those are the same people that said that Deion Sanders should be fired mid-season. Look, this is a program that's obviously been on the rise from the moment that he stepped in the door. They won one football game 2 years ago. They were 4-8 last year, went through a lot of injuries, had to remake that offensive line room. And to be honest, they're still doing that. But they are in control of their own destiny for the college football playoff this fall. Have another big game this week against a hot Kansas team. But Colorado's as hot as anybody is in the country. They've won 7 of their last 8 ball games. Travis Hunter's the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. Shedeur Sanders should be a finalist for that award, along with every other major quarterback accolade at the end of the season. And they got a lot of confidence within this program, and the support in the community is second to none. Those Colorado home games are an event. And the kids really love the environment that Deion Sanders and his staff have created for them as players with their college experience. Now, when you start having success, you start to see your name floated with other jobs. That's a good thing, right? Even Marcus Freeman's name at Notre Dame being connected to some NFL gossip this week I saw on the interweb. But Deion Sanders is recruiting to return to Colorado and reload a roster that's going to lose Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, and Julian Lewis is a nice starting point. Josh, he's trying to win a state championship this year at Carrollton High. He's completing 78% of his passes for 2,842 yards, 40 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions in 11 games. They have a big playoff game this weekend. He was a National Gatorade Player of the Year finalist last year. As a sophomore, DJ Lagway won the award at Florida. He was the Gatorade State Player of the Year for Georgia. They could maybe win a high school national championship this year. And no stage has been too big for Julian Lewis. He stepped right into high school football as one of the most heralded middle school quarterbacks that I can think of. Was offered by Florida in 8th grade, high expectations. Went to the state title game as a 9th grader in the state's largest class. Looking to bring it back as a senior now, and then he'll step in, be ready to play. That Coach Shermer offense was big for him, but the success on the field, NIL opportunities, chance to start day one, it all came together for Colorado. I don't know if we're having this conversation if they would have struggled in year two, but they're competing for the college football playoff in year 2, and they want to be in that discussion for years to come, and Julian Lewis is the quarterback they identified to get them there.
Yeah, now the future looks bright for the Buffs. They're winning on the field, and now they're winning on the recruiting trail. Colorado fans, talk to us. It's a big day. How you guys feeling? Comment section below. All right, let's head out to Austin. We're talking Texas versus Kentucky, and there's going to be some 5 stars on campus. Let's start with the big one. Offensive tackle Michael Fasusi. He's from the state of Texas, but he committed to Oklahoma. Steve, Fasusi's going to make 2 big visits before signing day, this weekend to Texas, next weekend to Texas A&M. What are you hearing on the 5-star offensive tackle?
Well, a couple weeks ago, it sounded like he was still locked in with Oklahoma, but as this develops closer to the finish line, these in-state programs, the Longhorns and Aggies, are getting an opportunity to make a final pitch, and it was a tough decision for him the first time around. I think Texas A&M was the runner-up to Oklahoma, but here come the Longhorns surging late. Terrific offensive line development and play. They're in the discussion to win the national championship, obviously, and Michael Fasusi has been there several times in different capacities and given them one final look down the stretch.
All right, so that's, if Fasusi, if and when he makes it to campus, is this kind of a controversial visit?
Why? Because of the track record of Brent Venables and Dabo Swinney not allowing prospects to take visits elsewhere?
Yeah.
Well, we've already seen that happen this cycle with Oklahoma a couple times, so I've already forgotten that existed with the Sooners.
So that rule has more teeth in a winning season than it does in a season like OU's having this year.
I think it just has more teeth at Clemson.
Okay, all right. Moving on to 5-star wide receiver Jaime Ffrench. He made some buzz last weekend when he showed up in the Swamp for an official visit. Now, Jaime Ffrench committed to Texas since early August. Do you sense that he might want to stay closer to home, or do you think he's just dotting I's, crossing T's here with that visit to UF?
Well, there are some people that I talked to that have said that they felt that way, and Jaime Ffrench obviously took his official visit to Florida this past weekend for what was a tremendous environment. There's people that have been to Florida games numerous times in the past. I'm talking about adults, high school coaches, sources. They said it just felt different inside the Swamp. They were ready to rally around Billy Napier who just got that vote of confidence from the administration. They got some key players back in the lineup that they didn't have against Texas. And it was a home game. We talked about it, Josh, where it just seemed like there was so much on the line for the direction of this program, and they rose to the occasion and dominated LSU in the second half, a ranked LSU team, and got a huge win. And the fans were a big part of that atmosphere. Jaime Ffrench felt that. Had a good official visit, had good meetings with the staff. The idea of playing with DJ Lagway is exciting. The support that the program's getting right now is advantageous for players. But look, Texas, they beat Ohio State for Jaime Ffrench. They beat Alabama. They beat Miami. They beat LSU. This is a recruitment that's been fluid, but Texas grabbed the lead in the spring, maintained it through the summer. There were some hurdles, and they got it done. Now there's one more late hurdle in the Gators, but with him returning to Austin this weekend, I like the way it sets up for Texas down the stretch. But Florida is going to battle all the way to December 4th in the early signing period.
All right. Now, we talk about Zion Williams. He's the defensive lineman from Lufkin, Texas, that's been committed to LSU. And I always feel like Zion Williams, he's always been on the back burner for Texas. They're always keeping him warm. There's always been conversation, but it never gets to the point where we have him on flip watch. So now that we're 2 weeks from signing day, is this a significant visit for Zion Williams to Texas?
Well, Justin Wells and Eric Nalen from our Texas side have been leading the charge on the coverage of Zion. It's certainly something I'm monitoring here late with the momentum Texas is trying to get going here at the end of the cycle as they make their final pushes for the important targets on their list to close out another top 5 recruiting class. He's one of their most coveted guys.
Oh, okay. So we'll see what happens this weekend. I just think something's going to shake out. He keeps on talking to Texas, keeps on showing up, but we'll see if LSU can hold on. Now, linebacker Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, he's been taking some visits. We liked his visit to Notre Dame, Michigan, Colorado's had a great visit with him. He's been out to USC. This weekend, though, he's expected to be in Austin. Do the Longhorns have a shot here?
Well, they always have a puncher's chance with what they offer a player on the field and the opportunities off the field for a Texas Longhorns football player. But I like where Colorado stands, and Michigan's in the top 2 for me in that recruitment. But the Longhorns, we've seen them loop around and have big recruiting wins, none more so than the jewel of the class, Jonah Williams, right? There was a time where he was an Oklahoma lean, and then Texas A&M had all the buzz, and could LSU be the biggest challenger? And then he takes that last visit to Texas at the end of the summer, and now he's in the fold for the Longhorns. So we'll see how things swing with guys like Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng this weekend.
All right, one prospect that Texas is playing a little defense on, and that's 4-star defensive lineman Myron Charles. They flipped him from Florida State. He's from Port Charlotte in Florida. Now, Myron Charles also showed up in Gainesville over the weekend, and Texas, they want to keep him. He's not one of those guys that they're going to let go. Myron Charles, it's becoming a battle. What are you hearing?
And they flipped him from Florida State. Look, same thing as Jaime Ffrench. I mean, Texas, they know they got a battle on their hands. It's that time of year. They're looking to flip some guys. Some schools are looking to flip their own. But I do know that Texas is equipped to go into these recruiting wars with what they do on the field, the relationships that these coaches have with these prospects, and then, again, the infrastructure and resources that the Longhorns have to make the situation a little extra attractive.
All right, Texas fans. How we feeling about this big flip visit weekend? Michael Fasusi coming into town. You'd love to add another 5-star offensive tackle before signing day. How you feeling about it? Let me know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, let's talk a little Michigan. Michigan hosts Northwestern in their last home game of the season. So, this weekend, all eyes are going to be on Bryce Underwood. Does he show up at Michigan? I don't even know if he has to show up for this recruitment to go in Michigan's direction. What's the latest with Bryce Underwood?
Look, I just think Michigan's still alive in that recruitment. Obviously, he's been committed to LSU since January, took his official visit for the Alabama game, had a great experience, another great experience in Baton Rouge, brought a lot of family members, sees himself being part of that program, chasing after a Heisman Trophy like Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels. His relationship with Joe Sloan is well documented. They're super close, and he's connected with those recruits. But Michigan is still alive at the end of this cycle.
All right. Another major flip target on campus is linebacker Ty Haywood. I was a little surprised to see him showing up this weekend. What's cooking between Michigan and Ty Haywood?
Well, Michigan this season is unacceptable by their standards. They're 5-5 going into this Northwestern game, and they don't plan on being mediocre next year and beyond. That's why they're pushing hard for Bryce Underwood down the stretch, and why they're in it for Bryce Underwood down the stretch. And Ty Haywood's another blue chipper that they're swinging at and chipping away at late in the process. And Sharon Moore's got a couple Joe Moore awards flanked over his shoulders in the Michigan office, awarded to college football's best offensive line. And so they got a lot to sell to a prospect the caliber of Ty Haywood. Infrastructure and resources is getting the line at Michigan as they make a final push towards a top 10 class, and those are two emerging targets.
All right. Now, Michigan bringing back in tight end Andrew Olish and Andrew Marsh this weekend after they've been taking visits elsewhere. What's the latest with these two Michigan commitments?
Huge visit with Andrew Olish, in my opinion, working this story with our colleague Chad Simmons. He's obviously been out to Penn State this fall, took a trip to Notre Dame, has a return visit to Oregon, so it'll be his second time in Eugene this season. So there's some other players in this. Penn State, you almost hear James Franklin talking to Olish through the media. Why wouldn't a tight end want to come here, particularly one from Pennsylvania? I think we can read between the lines on who he was talking to there. And they had a great experience in Happy Valley and loves the way that they're using Tyler Warren in that offense. The tight end's always been super relevant in Michigan's offense. That's not going to change under Sharon Moore and this coaching staff. Michigan's season, again, obviously not going the way that Andrew and everyone expected when he jumped in the fold. So getting him back on campus, showing him that the direction of this program is still what he thought it was when he committed is big, because Penn State and Oregon are giving him a lot to think about.
All right, Steve, who else do you like trending in Michigan's direction as we're just 2 weeks from signing day?
Well, Josh, on 300 linebacker Bradley Gompers from Pennsylvania. He's currently committed to Duke, but Michigan is a program that I've been keeping a close eye on in his recruitment, and I like the way that's starting to trend for the Maize and Blue. I think he's ultimately in the fold for Coach Moore and company when all's said and done. Michigan's still plugging away at Brandon Finney, the elite cornerback from McDonough School in Owings Mill, Maryland. Now, Penn State's been trending on the on-3 RPM, but the dialogue with the Wolverines has continued. They're trying to get him on campus this weekend. And if he's inside the big house, that tells me that it's game on with Penn State as they try and flip the Oregon commit. And then you got guys like Alex Graham, in-state four-star defensive back, committed to Colorado, was back in Boulder last weekend. Michigan still pushing for Alex Graham as well. There's a few more out there, but Gompers is the one right now that I have in my crosshairs for Michigan.
All right, Michigan fans, talk to me and Steve. How are we feeling about this last home game of the season and some of these big-time targets? What do you think about Bryce Underwood? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, let's head down to Gainesville. UF takes on Ole Miss in the Swamp, and the Gators are hoping to recreate the atmosphere that they had last week when they beat LSU in front of hundreds of top recruits, and a bunch of them are back this weekend. We'll start with five-star wide receiver Dallas Wilson. He was so impressed with the Florida Gators, he scheduled an official visit for this weekend, 2 weeks before signing day. Dallas Wilson has been committed to Oregon for well over a year now, but he's from Tampa, Florida, committed to Oregon, 3,000 miles away. How serious is this recent back and forth between Dallas Wilson and the Florida Gators?
Well, he's been committed to Oregon for nearly 2 years, and he has not taken many college visits since. There's always rumor, hey, Dallas Wilson's going to visit this weekend. Then Dallas Wilson doesn't show. So he arrives at Florida last weekend, coming back this weekend. I think it's easy to say the Gators are the biggest challenger to Oregon. Miami's still trying to poke around on Dallas Wilson as well. Still going to be a tough flip. You know, as Chad Simmons reports, Dallas Wilson expected back at Oregon next weekend. He loves the Ducks. Junior Adams, Dan Lanning, that program has poured a lot into the Dallas Wilson recruitment. It's going to be a tough flip, but he's keeping Florida very warm here at the end of his process.
All right. Speaking of five-star wide receivers, what do you think the chances are we see Jaime Ffrench back in Gainesville this weekend?
Well, our colleagues Justin Wells and Eric Nalen at the Texas website are expecting him in Austin this weekend. I know Florida has been trying to get him back for a second straight weekend in Gainesville, but the news on the street is that he will be at Texas. That's not going to slow Florida's charge in trying to close Jaime Ffrench down the stretch here. The opportunity to play with DJ Lagway, being inside an electric swamp last weekend was exciting. Had great meetings with the staff. The trajectory of this program now with a lot of young players. His current quarterback, Tramel Jones, is committed and excited to come in there and push DJ Lagway. There's been some good dialogue with Florida and Jaime Ffrench down the stretch. But I had Tramel Jones predicted to Florida. I had Stephon Shivers predicted to Florida. Daniel Pierre-Louis predicted to Florida. And still not quite ready to put in that prediction and say Jaime Ffrench is going to jump in with Florida. But he's definitely keeping the Gators warm.
All right, Florida has just been ravishing Florida State's commit list, and now there's another target that's in Florida's sights. That's running back Byron Lewis. He announced yesterday that he's going to take a weekend visit to Gainesville to check out UF, and it's an official visit. Now, Byron Lewis committed to FSU during the season, so not that long ago, but what are you hearing on where things stand between him and the Seminoles and him and the Gators?
Well, much was made of the huge recruiting weekend that Florida had last Saturday with all the blue chippers and top targets on campus. Byron was there as well and just went under the radar, but he had such a fantastic time. He told me he wants to bring his parents back for another look. Talked to a source with knowledge of the recruitment. They said it's 50-50 on if he flips or not. And Byron added he's hearing from several other schools besides Florida and Florida State, but this opportunity from Florida is one that has his attention. So this is a big visit this weekend for the Gators, and I could see him playing his college football inside the swamp.
Wow, we'll see what happens there. Now, Javian Hilson, the edge who decommitted from FSU in early September, he's kind of been quiet with his recruitment. Early on, right after that decommit, it seemed like he was on college campuses left and right, but what's the latest on Hilson, and will he be in Gainesville this weekend?
This has been such a fluid recruitment, obviously. Been committed to Alabama, been committed to Florida State. Then you have all the Texas buzz. Texas A&M makes a move when they had him on campus earlier this season. Then my man's visited Pitt and Syracuse here most recently. So he's made the rounds. He's got a lot of schools on his mind that he's keeping warm. This is Florida's opportunity to present what they can offer him on the field and off the field. I think it's a big visit. And with the way this recruitment has gone, to get in at the end might be the time that you really want to get hot with Javian Hilson. And he is an explosive, high-motored pass rusher, plays for arguably the best high school football program in the state. He's got the mentality and the intangibles you're looking for along with those tangibles.
All right, Gator fans, how you feeling heading into this big weekend against Ole Miss? A lot of recruiting targets back on campus. Let us know. Comment section below. Let's head out to the Plains. We're talking Auburn as they take on the Texas A&M Aggies. Now, the Tigers, their season might be going in one direction, but recruiting, it's staying red hot. They got the number 6 recruiting class in the country. And, Steve, one of the big names that sticks out to me is Deuce Knight, the quarterback committed to Auburn, who they flipped from Notre Dame, who's been visiting Ole Miss, is back on campus this weekend. What do you make of this Deuce Knight recruitment?
Well, it's big to get him back. He was also there last week. He's been to just about every home game, if not all the home games this year. I've lost track of that, but I have not lost track of Ole Miss recruiting Deuce Knight. They had him on campus for the win over Georgia. Lane Kiffin's been in the high school. Nearly all my intel says that Deuce Knight is going to stick, but the Rebels continue to push. Will he visit for the Egg Bowl? So getting Deuce Knight back on campus around a bunch of the commits, so a couple of their final remaining targets, is always good at this point in the recruiting cycle.
All right. Now another big visitor on campus, Auburn. They're going to take a big swing at 5-star defensive lineman Justice Terry. UGA, the heavy favorite here, but we know director of recruiting Kenyatta Watson, he has relationships, especially in the state of Georgia. Can Kenyatta Watson work some magic here, and can the Auburn Tigers pull off a commitment from Justice Terry?
Yeah, when Coach Watson worked for the Under Armour camps, he saw Justice Terry on the field in middle school and highlighted him at that time. Then when he got the job at Florida State, had him come up for his first ever recruiting visit. So that's a long-standing relationship. Montrell King Williams has gotten very involved, Auburn's defensive line coach. Look, Georgia's the heavy favorite. I love where the Bulldogs stand with Justice Terry, but there's some optimism around the Plains that they can make a move with the 5-star this weekend, and they're going to swing on it.
All right, we got some flip buzz on the Plains. Can Auburn flip Tennessee defensive lineman Darion Smith?
Yes, I think it's actually trending that way. They have a couple of his teammates already committed in this class. His other teammate, 2026 safety Jaime Edwards, is going to visit Auburn this weekend. The Tigers are doing very well at Baltimore St. Francis, and this one looks to be going their direction as well.
Wow. Auburn fans, we love a good Tennessee flip. How you guys feeling about recruiting? Let us know. Comment section below. Steve, let's head down to South Carolina where the Gamecocks are pushing for a top 20 class. Shane Beamer has more recruits on campus this weekend. Couple official visitors, defensive lineman Christian Ingram, safety Stephen Miller. He's committed to USC. And then South Carolina commit edge Jaquavius Dodd. How about the two that are not committed to South Carolina? Does the Gamecocks have a shot there?
Absolutely. Christian Ingram has had two really good visits to Kentucky and Michigan. There was some buzz earlier that the Wildcats weren't in really good position, but I could see South Carolina making a move with Christian Ingram this weekend. And then Stephen Miller, they have been making a move. This will be his second game of the season, currently committed to USC, but the Gamecocks are more than warm here down the stretch for him.
All right. Now, we know the Gamecocks are in great position for the following prospects. Wide receiver Donovan Murph, cornerback Michael Clayton, who's committed to Rutgers, edge Jared Smith to Auburn, offensive tackle Damola Jidahun, who's committed to Georgia Tech, and they got big old defensive lineman Kevin Wynn, who everybody's after, committed to FSU. Steve, who do you think South Carolina can close on in the next 2 weeks?
Well, I talked to Michael Clayton this morning. That's really promising, a cornerback from Warner Robins, Georgia. He has 10.4 speed. That's the kind of juice that can run with any receiver in the SEC. We talked about Stephen Miller. His teammate is Kevin Wynn. Also think that that's been trending well for South Carolina, but Georgia still lurks for Kevin Wynn, and USC is still in the mix there as well. Damola Ajidahun back at Georgia Tech this week. We'll see if he arrives in Columbia again. If he's at South Carolina again this week, and that's his fifth game inside Williams-Brice Stadium. South Carolina doing an excellent job with Damola, top 100 offensive lineman from Duluth, Georgia. Mike Tyler's a back and forth local tight end committed to LSU. That's kind of a back and forth on if he could stick or if he could flip. And then Jared Smith, that's just going to be a war to the end. Look, he's been South Carolina's top overall target in the cycle, in my opinion. And I thought it was going to work out the way it worked out with Dylan Stewart, their top overall prospect in the cycle a year ago. They beat out Georgia and many others for Dylan Stewart. I thought they led for Jared Smith in the spring. My on-3 RPM was on the Gamecocks, but then Auburn snagged that momentum in the summer, got him in the fold. Now they got to hold off South Carolina. He's been to 2 games in Columbia. So has a really good relationship with Sterling Lucas, Shane Beamer and company. And Ole Miss is still lurking too, expecting to get Jared Smith in for the Egg Bowl. That would be his second game at Ole Miss this year. But South Carolina is going to be in it all the way to pen hits paper for Jared Smith.
All right, South Carolina fans, you can feel the momentum building. They need a big win this weekend, but who do you think South Carolina can flip down the stretch? Let us know. Comment section below. All right, Steve, give us your latest predictions and trends and take us out of here.
Yeah, Josh, let's start with On3's number 1 ranked tight end in the 2026 cycle, Kendry Harrison. I think he's the best high school football player in the country in that class, would be an electric elite defensive end recruit. Also going to play college basketball on the next level. I like where Oregon stands. He's going to announce his college commitment on November 30th. Hayes Fawcett had the news. I don't think his recruitment will be over on November 30th, but I like where Oregon stands going into that announcement over places like North Carolina, Miami, Penn State, to name a few others. He's been out to Oregon a couple times, including this fall. He camped there for Saturday Night Live. Oregon's in the mix for a lot of those top 10 prospects like Jared Curtis, Chris Henry and company. I like the way it's lining up for Kendry Harrison. Another on-3 RPM I put in this week was for Dennis Uzochukwu, an offensive lineman from the state of Georgia, recently minted an on-300 recruit in our latest update. I like where Georgia stands. The Bulldogs offered this week. He was in Athens last week, taking his official visit this weekend. I think he'll be part of a class that ranks number 1 nationally. Isaiah Campbell, on-300 defensive lineman, top 50 recruit, recently decommitted from Clemson. The on-3 RPM favors Tennessee, Josh, But North Carolina had them on campus for an official visit this past weekend. The Tar Heels have won 3 games in a row. Their defensive line is playing well. They're getting after the quarterback. What North Carolina offers from an academic standpoint, I could see him at North Carolina instead of Tennessee. So we'll be keeping close tabs on that one. That'll do it for today's episode of the Wiltfong Whiparound. Thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you hit like and subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel so you're up to date for all the best information as we close this 2025 recruiting cycle. We will see you on Saturday for the Recruit Reaction Show and then back again Monday for the Wiltfong Whiparound.